I'm so confused. This is not the story that I heard from my niece. I know that Yandy was not the one that was DMing her. Yandy's husband was. She's clearly lying to my face, and I'm not calling her out about it because I don't feel that I should.
Tamar Braxton didn't just post a selfie or drop a single. She dropped a bombshell. The R&B diva revealed she barely survived a terrifying near-death ordeal, and the messy trail of drama tied to that night has the internet convinced this isn't just an accident. From bloody hospital beds to cheating whispers, police sirens, and love and hip-hop marriages on the line, Tamar's scare has snowballed into one of the wildest scandals of the year, and fans are still piecing together whether this was fate, foul play, or a full-blown setup. Tamar Braxton has lived through her share of drama, but nothing could have prepared her fans for the bombshell she dropped on Instagram. On August 19th, the singer revealed that she had just survived one of the scariest nights of her life, describing how she was left bloody, bruised, and barely conscious. At first glance, it sounded like a tragic accident, something that could have happened to anyone on a night out gone wrong. But as the details started trickling out, it became clear this wasn't just about Tamar's health. It was the beginning of a scandal that quickly spiraled into one of the messiest headlines of the year. Because here's the thing, Tamar wasn't alone that night. She wasn't just leaving a club, and she wasn't just another celebrity dealing with a random mishap. The events leading up to her collapse placed her squarely in the middle of a love triangle straight out of reality TV, and when people realized who else was involved, the internet exploded. We're talking cheating whispers, police sirens, clout-chasing accusations, and a marriage that's already been hanging by a thread. Tamar didn't just survive a near-death experience. She walked straight into the kind of chaos that fans say could only happen in Atlanta. What really shook people was how fast the timeline went from glamorous to gruesome. One moment, Tamar was spotted in the VIP section of a packed lounge, music blasting, champagne flowing, and eyes on her every move. The next, she was found bloodied and broken in what some are calling a setup, others a warning, and a few even whispering it was a payback hit. And the names being thrown around? They weren't just random faces from the industry. They were some of the most familiar figures from love and hip-hop, people who know exactly how to turn private drama into public spectacle. Fans couldn't help but ask the same question. How does Tamar Braxton go from a night out in the city to fighting for her life in the early hours of the morning? And why do the rumors all point back to the same messy circle of reality stars, marriages under fire, and secrets people are clearly desperate to keep buried? Tamar's shocking announcement wasn't just a personal confession. It was the spark that set off a firestorm of speculation, gossip, and finger-pointing that's still raging online. To really understand how Tamar's night spiraled into chaos, you have to rewind back to the scene that set it all off. A late night in Atlanta, the kind where the clubs are packed wall-to-wall and everybody's watching who walks in and out. The spot was B12 Lounge, one of those places where the bottles never stop popping, the music rattles the floor, and half the room is either Instagramming their outfits or plotting to send footage straight to the blogs. And right in the middle of that swirl was Tamar Braxton, done up, glowing, and clearly not blending into the background. But she wasn't alone. Fans who were there swear she looked way too comfortable with none other than Mendeecees Harris. Yes, that Mendeecees, husband of love and hip-hop's Yandy Smith, or, depending who you ask, her soon-to-be ex. From the jump, it didn't look like casual industry networking. This wasn't a hey, how you doing kind of vibe. Eyewitnesses say Tamar and Mendeecees locked in on each other for most of the night. They weren't mingling around the room. They weren't bouncing from section to section. They were locked in, laughing at inside jokes, leaning close, whispering in each other's ears like the rest of the club had melted away. One person who claimed to be standing just a few feet away told the blog, the way Tamar was leaning on him, it wasn't just friendly. That was the kind of lean you only give somebody you're comfortable with. And the crazy part? He wasn't backing off. He was right there with it. Now, if this had been a one-off moment, maybe people could have brushed it off as two celebs enjoying themselves in a loud club. But this is Atlanta. And in Atlanta, nothing stays hidden. There's always a phone out, always someone ready to spill. By the middle of the night, stories were already flying across Twitter and Instagram, Screenshots, blurry videos, captions like "Why Tamar and Mendeecees looking like a couple?" Fans were dissecting body language like detectives. Some said it was giving PR stunt. Others swore it looked like something deeper. But either way, everyone agreed on one thing. The chemistry wasn't subtle. Then came the exit, the part of the story that really made the whispers explode. Around 1 a.m., Tamar and Mendeecees weren't just seen leaving the club. They were seen leaving together. And not in that "we just happened to be walking out at the same time" kind of way. Witnesses say Tamar headed out first, Mendeecees trailing right behind her like they'd rehearsed the move. One fan wrote online, "It wasn't slick. He followed her out like a shadow." That little detail was enough to shift the narrative from flirty to scandalous. Because if you know Atlanta nightlife, you know the cameras don't turn off when you hit the sidewalk. And sure enough, word spread fast. Tamar wasn't hopping in an Uber or catching a ride solo. Funky Diva, her longtime friend and outspoken media personality, was the one who slid behind the wheel to drive her home. But the kicker? Multiple sources swear that Mendeecees didn't just peel off into the night. No, he followed, his car trailing right behind like he wasn't ready to let the night end. And that's where the timeline starts to shift from messy to downright eerie. Tamar in one car with Funky, Mendeecees in another, following close behind. To some people, that felt like effort. That felt intentional. Because this wasn't just a casual link-up in a crowded club anymore. It was starting to look like a storyline that was going to follow them all the way back home. Now here's where things start to feel less like a fun night out and more like the opening scene of a true crime documentary. Once Tamar left the club, it wasn't an Uber pulling up to scoop her. It wasn't some anonymous driver. It was Funky Diva, her longtime friend, messy commentator, and the same Funky who has never been shy about calling out celebrities, including Tamar herself when he felt like she was out of line. So the fact that he was the one driving her home added an extra layer of credibility to the story. People trusted Funky to tell how it really was. But as Tamar and Funky slid off into the night, witnesses noticed something that sent a chill through the timeline. Mendeecees wasn't done. He got into his car and tailed right behind them. Folks described it like a shadow, one car pulling off and his headlights following close behind. Think about that visual. Tamar in one car, Funky behind the wheel trying to keep the night calm, and then Mendeecees trailing them like he was making sure he didn't lose sight. That's not just coincidence. That's effort. That's intention. When they finally reached Tamar's place, the story didn't just stop at the driveway. According to Funky himself, what was supposed to be the end of the night turned into a low-key after-party. Tamar invited Mendeecees inside. And not just him, a few other friends tagged along too. Now, depending on who you ask, this is either where the night stayed innocent or where everything started to spin out of control. Some insist it was harmless, just drinks, music, conversation. But others swear that was the exact moment where the energy shifted, the vibe got strange, and the timeline turned murky. Because hours later, Tamar wasn't laughing, sipping cocktails, or posting Instagram stories from her living room. She was being discovered in what she herself described as one of the scariest moments of her life. Bloodied, battered, teeth missing, fighting for consciousness. And the problem is the hours between leaving that club and Tamar ending up in that state are a complete gray area. Nobody seems to agree on what happened inside those walls. Tamar calls it a tragic accident, but to the streets, it looked calculated. It looked like a setup. And here's the part people can't stop replaying. If Funky dropped her off, if Mendeecees was right there, if people were hanging out inside her home, then who else was really present when things went left? How do you go from VIP sections and whispered jokes to waking up in a pool of your own blood? The unanswered questions hanging over those hours made the entire situation feel eerie, like a bad script where key pages had been ripped out. And when the blogs got a hold of that after-party detail, they didn't just see a gap in the story. They saw a cover-up waiting to be cracked wide open. By the time dawn cracked over Atlanta, the night had taken a turn from whispers and speculation to something straight-up horrifying. Tamar Braxton, Grammy-nominated singer, TV personality, and reality star, wasn't just hungover or laid up from a late night out. She was found bloodied, bruised, barely conscious, and the most chilling detail, she was missing teeth. Now, Tamar herself tried to package the incident under one simple explanation. It was an accident. No foul play. Nothing sinister. Just a tragic slip that left her battered and broken. That's the story she told her fans, her family, and even the press. But let's be honest, nobody bought it. Because how do you just slip and lose multiple teeth? How do you go from champagne and selfies to blood on the floor and an ambulance rushing to your door? The math simply wasn't mathing. And this is where the streets started buzzing louder than ever. The accident narrative sounded way too neat, way too polished. People immediately started asking the uncomfortable question, was Tamar the victim of a brutal attack? And if so, by who? What we do know is that neighbors reported hearing sirens scream through Tamar's neighborhood in the early hours. Police cars, ambulances, lights bouncing off the quiet Atlanta streets. But when reporters dug into it, the official police report was vague. So vague, it almost read like a placeholder. No mention of an attacker. No detailed account of injuries. Just medical assistance requested. That's it. For a public figure like Tamar, who has lived her life on reality TV with every breakup and breakdown aired for millions, that silence felt suspicious. Even funky diva, who drove her home that night, stayed uncharacteristically quiet. And when Funky is quiet, you know something's up. Because Funky doesn't just hold his tongue unless there's something bigger brewing in the background. Add to that Mendeecees name floating in a mix, and suddenly, the internet was convinced this wasn't just an oops, I fell moment. This was a setup. Fans pointed out that Tamar had too much to lose to frame this as anything but an accident. After all, how many headlines does a domestic incident generate versus a tragic fall? The difference isn't just semantics, it's reputation, contracts, and credibility. But the problem is the cover-up theory started to gain more traction than her official version of events. Because if Tamar was simply clumsy, why the missing teeth? Why the police silence? Why the absence of any clear timeline between the after-party and her bloody discovery? It's the gaps in her story that turned one woman's trauma into a city-wide mystery. And until those gaps are filled, the question remains on everyone's lips. Did Tamar Braxton survive an accident? Or did she survive an attack? Just when people thought this story couldn't twist any further, another name entered the chat, and it changed everything. Yandy Smith-Harris. Now, let's not forget, Yandy isn't just Mendeecees' wife. She's been his bulldog, his backbone, his public defender for years. From Love and Hip Hop to countless interviews, Yandy has built her brand on protecting her man and protecting their marriage, even when the receipts didn't look so flattering. When Mendeecees was serving that long prison stint, Yandy was the one holding it down, visiting him, raising the kids, and posting about loyalty. When cheating rumors swirled, she never flinched, always brushing off, always spinning it as gossip. To her, the outside world could say whatever it wanted, but Yandy was going to protect her family's image. So when Tamar's name got attached to Mendeecees on the night in question, the internet immediately started side-eyeing Yandy. Because if Tamar really was cozying up to her husband in that club, whispering, leaning close, leaving with him in the shadows, that would mean Tamar wasn't just another woman in the VIP section. She was crossing a line Yandy has fought tooth and nail to protect for over a decade. And fans? They ran wild with it. Some began whispering that maybe Tamar's accident wasn't an accident at all, but a warning. A retaliation, a snap moment from a woman who's been pushed, prodded, and embarrassed one too many times. The idea that Yandy, Miss Calm, Miss Businesswoman, might have had a breaking point became the messy theory fueling Twitter threads, TikTok breakdowns, and Instagram lives. Adding gasoline to the fire was the fact that, just days before this drama exploded, Mendeecees had gone out of his way to shower Yandy with love online. Birthday tributes, long captions, pledges of loyalty and devotion. The kind of gushy, public husband performance that's meant to reassure a woman and remind everyone watching that my wife is my queen. But when that's followed by whispers of Tamar and Mendeecees leaving a club together, those same birthday posts start to look less like romance and more like overcompensation. Like Mendeecees knew he was stepping out of line and was trying to smooth it over before it got messy. So when Tamar popped up bruised and bloodied, fans didn't just ask what happened. They asked who had the most motive to make sure it happened. And suddenly, Yandy, the devoted wife, the loyal soldier, the protector, was no longer in the background of the story. She was front and center, cast as the woman who might have finally had enough. Because let's be real, nothing fuels betrayal suspicions faster than a husband's wandering eye, a wife's long history of defending him, and another woman stepping into that picture. And if Tamar really was that woman, then the whispers that Yandy had snapped weren't just plausible, they were inevitable. And just when the streets were heating up, Tamar made her next move, and it had everybody's jaws on the floor. Out of nowhere, she popped up online with none other than Mendeecees himself. Not a statement, not an apology, not even a denial. A whole video, smiling, cozy, almost as if the bloody, bruised, near-death drama never happened. Now, fans weren't buying it for a second. To them, this wasn't about friendship or innocence. This was textbook damage control. Because if Tamar was truly a victim, why would she link up with the very man being whispered about in connection to her downfall? Why wouldn't she keep her distance, focus on healing, and let the rumors fade? Instead, she put herself back in the fire, fueling the narrative instead of extinguishing it. And the blogs? Oh, they had a field day. Gossip pages started dragging the clip as nothing but a clout-chasing cover-up. The headlines practically wrote themselves. Tamar and Mendeecees playing in our faces, from bloodied to buddy-buddy overnight. Accident or PR stunt? The contradictions were just too loud. Fans dissected every second of the video. Her smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, his casual energy that seemed too relaxed for a man caught up in whispers of scandal. The comments section was merciless. Sis was fighting for her life yesterday. Now she's cheesing with the suspect? This screams NDA and hush money. If it's really innocent, why release the video at all? And then came the bigger question. Who was this video really for? Because to the fans, it didn't feel like reassurance. It felt like performance. Like both Tamar and Mendeecees were less concerned about truth and more concerned about optics. Keeping the narrative controlled. Keeping the bag secure. But here's the kicker. Instead of killing the story, the video supercharged it. Suddenly, the whispers of a setup turned into outright conspiracies. People accused Tamar of protecting Mendeecees to protect herself. Others suggested Yandy was lurking in the background, pulling strings. And some went so far as to say this whole thing, bloody face, missing teeth, sirens and all, was nothing but a messy PR stunt designed to get Tamar back in headlines. Whether it was a cover-up, a contract, or just plain clout chasing, one thing became crystal clear. Tamar's video didn't solve the mystery. It deepened it. Because now, instead of asking what happened to Tamar, everyone was asking, why is she protecting him? And in the world of celebrity scandals, sometimes the cover-up is messier than the crime itself. But if Tamar thought that little video with Mendeecees was going to smooth things over, baby, she was dead wrong. Because the fallout didn't just come from fans and blogs, it came from somebody right in the middle of the drama. Funky Diva. See, Funky wasn't just a bystander in this mess. He was there. He was the one driving Tamar home that night. The one who saw the whispers, the shadows, and the chaos unfold up close. But according to Funky, instead of telling the truth, Tamar tried to spin the narrative. And in doing so, she dragged his name into a circus he never asked for. On Instagram, Funky let it all out. Rant after rant, frustration dripping from every word. He claimed he had been collateral damage in Tamar's messy PR stunt. Though while she was busy posting with Mendeecees and smiling for the cameras, he was the one getting hit with DMs, accusations, and bloggers try to twist his role in the story. And the gag? Funky said Tamar ghosted him. No calls, no texts, no check-ins, just silence, which only made him feel like she used him as a shield, parading his presence that night as proof nothing shady happened, while leaving him to deal with the mess when the streets kept pushing the setup narrative. Funky's words hit like a thunderclap. I'm not your scapegoat, Tamar. I'm not your cover story. You wanted me there when it looked good, but when it got messy, you vanished. You let me take the hits while you smiling with Mendeecees? Nah, I ain't with it. Of course, Tamar couldn't stay silent for long. Her clapback came quick, wrapped in that classic Tamar tone, sharp, emotional, and dripping with defiance. She denied staging anything, denied orchestrating a stunt, claimed all she wanted was peace. Peace from the drama, peace from the whispers, peace from the chaos swirling around her name. But her version of peace didn't land the way she hoped, because to fans, it sounded like another dodge, another excuse, another attempt to downplay a situation that had clearly spiraled out of control. So what we were left with was pure chaos. Funky diva fuming, Tamar defending, fans split right down the middle. Some siding with Funky, saying he had every right to feel used. Others backing Tamar, accusing Funky of milking the drama for clicks and clout. And the blogs? Oh, they ate it up. Headlines screaming, Tamar betrays Funky diva, and Funky calls Tamar a liar on IG Live. What was once a whispered scandal in an Atlanta club had officially blown up into a public feud. And the worst part? The more Tamar and Funky fought, the less anybody believed Tamar's accident story. Because if your own friend, the one who was literally there, doesn't buy the spin, why should the fans? At this point, Tamar wasn't just battling rumors. She was battling credibility. And that's a fight no amount of Instagram posts can win. And even after Tamar and Funky diva finally hugged it out, calling their feud a misunderstanding and trying to move forward, one thing didn't disappear. The whispers. Because while the two of them patched things up on social media, the streets weren't letting go of the bigger storyline. The one with Yandy Smith at the center. See, fans couldn't shake the suspicion that Yandy, the woman who spent years fiercely guarding her marriage, silencing cheating rumors, and holding her family together through Mendeecees' prison stint, might have had a breaking point. And Tamar, whether knowingly or not, might have crossed it. No matter how many videos Tamar dropped, no matter how many explanations she tried to spin, the whispers about Yandy wouldn't die down. Every shady birthday post, every old clip of Yandy clapping back at women in Mendeecees' orbit, fans were digging it all back up, piecing together their own messy timelines. And the picture they painted was not pretty. But here's where it gets deeper. This entire scandal blurred the line between reality TV drama and real-life violence. Tamar's bloodied face wasn't just a storyline. Her missing teeth weren't part of script. The police sirens? The hospital stay? Those weren't confessionals for love and hip-hop. Those were real-world consequences. And that's what made this mess so unsettling. Because for years, we've watched these stars play out their chaos on screen. Shady dinners, dramatic reveals, explosive reunions. But when the cameras cut, we forget that the drama doesn't always stop. Sometimes it spills over. Sometimes the jealousy, the betrayal, the secrets, they jump off the screen and land in the streets. And when that happens, the cost is no longer ratings. It's lives, reputations, and sometimes even safety. So yes, Tamar says it was just an accident. Yes, Funky diva says he and Tamar are good now. Yes, Mendeecees is still smiling like nothing ever happened. But fans aren't convinced. The blogs aren't convinced. And deep down, the questions linger. Was this really just a tragic mishap? Or was it a setup gone wrong? And if Yandy was involved, directly or indirectly, will the truth ever actually come out? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just some messy love and hip-hop subplot. This is a stark reminder that behind the glam, the gossip, and the reality TV cameras, there are real people with real grudges. And when those grudges erupt, the fallout is way too real. And that's the soap opera effect. What starts as entertainment can end in blood, betrayal, and unanswered questions that may never fade.